My name is Brian Thompson. I am the Chief Innovation and Partnership Officer here at UWM. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to UWM on behalf of Chancellor Gibson, as well as the other university leadership we have here, Vice Chancellor Betty and others. So welcome, number one. Number two, I guess a thought for today, adapt and connect. We need to adapt what universities are doing to better serve the needs of businesses, to better serve the needs of our students, to integrate new technologies like AI and advanced automation. And so CSI is part of how we're doing that. And I'm really pleased to see this panel come together to discuss that. So my gratitude to Representative Neylon, Secretary Pechacek, Dr. Hamann, and Ms. Malnight, for being part of this discussion, because lending your voices to this is very important. So Jeff, thank you for your leadership in fostering these dialogues. And I'll turn it over to you, and thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Now you can applaud because the panel has been introduced. I congratulate Brian for memorizing everybody's names. So anyway, welcome everybody. So I represent WisPolitics and WisBusiness. We're part of the State Affairs Network, which is a national network of nonpartisan sites and news services like ours, going from Massachusetts all the way to California. So doing events like this is important, I think, for the state, important for the universities of Wisconsin, important for UW-Milwaukee, and really important for the citizens and the workforce. And we're going to try to concentrate on AI and how it affects the manufacturing workforce. But of course, there's many variations of that, and how do we define the workforce, and what part of what AI advancements are we talking about? So I'm going to ask some basic questions, try to set the scene, and then have you folks ask the smart questions, and we'll try to do it in about an hour. This is being recorded. Thank you, Jay, for recording this. And so an audio recording and a video recording will be available after. There's also a couple of reporters in the room, so be careful what you say. All right. I just want to start with you, Katie. Rely Manufacturing, contract manufacturing, I read about your company, and I thought it was an awesome business model. So tell us a little bit about your business and, how long has it been going, and explain to them what contract manufacturing is.
Yep. So we were a startup. We were supposed to do our ribbon cutting April 2020. So that went really well. We did not have a ribbon cutting ceremony. But what we are is, so we focus on the secondary operations and value-added services that manufacturers get asked to do by their customers, because everyone's used to like Amazon type of service right now that are outside of their wheelhouse, but they need to be able to fulfill those types of services if they're going to be able to win the work that they actually want. And so some examples of that is we do complex wire harnessing, so harnesses that take anywhere from 13 to 20 hours to build from scratch, that are powering AC units and buses, Navy engines, that type of stuff. And then we do a lot of sub-assemblies for manufacturers. So manufacturers that just want to focus on doing the final assembly, we will take out all of their sub-assemblies and be able to deliver that to them. So it allows them to be a lot more efficient in their final assembly. We do a lot of third-party sortation. So if parts come into a manufacturer, they fail incoming inspection, we will be able to certify the parts, whether it's high pot testing, visual inspection, using gauges, that type of thing. And then finally, we do a lot of fulfillment types of services. So if anyone is a fan of Rishi tea, if you ever order it from Amazon, we fulfill that. It goes through our facility. And so one of the other unique things that we do, we have a big refugee population in our facility. So there's probably 80% of our population doesn't speak any English at all. And so what we try to do is we also try to use our facility as a way to show other manufacturers how to successfully employ those workforces while still being ISO certified, while still having quality. And then we also provide introduction to manufacturing classes for folks with disabilities. We've hired on 12 individuals and then helped them get hired elsewhere. And so we are big proponents of the power of people and marrying them with AI and automation to be able to prove that it's not going to kill every single one of the jobs. You just need to figure out where it's going to work and how you can really become a part of the system that you're building.
Okay. And you are based in
Menominee Falls.
Menominee Falls, and you have one facility that does all this stuff?
Yep.
And how many employees do you have?
So we have anywhere between 50 to 100 employees, depending on what the mix is. And so that's the other unique thing about our facility is we have a lot of different industries represented. So there's a big complexity associated with it, especially on the scheduling side of things, which is why we connected with the Connected Systems Institute to build out a scheduling software using AI so that we could be scheduling associates based off of what their efficiency rates were, what their quality has been previously, so that we can get the product out the door in as efficient as way as possible, while also increasing our bottom line as much as possible.
Okay, so how many of those employees are full-time?
All of them.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's go to Joe Hamann. He's the Executive Director of Connected Systems Institute. That's where we are. So Joe, how did Katie come to you? How did you help Katie in what they're trying to do? Because I think it's more I think AI plays a role because it's a complicated scheduling thing that you do. So,
yeah, it's a great question, and thanks everybody for being here again. Joe Hamann, Executive Director, Connected Systems Institute. Katie teed this up really nicely, talking about the business model with Rely, their focus on manufacturing, but also building talent, and that fits very well with our mission here at the CSI, which is enablement of the future workforce is manufacturing. We bring that mission to life several different ways. Certainly investment in educational programs here at the university, investments in specific research where our faculty members are out connecting with industry partners. And then we have a consortium of both manufacturing companies and technology companies that come together in this space to rally around common topics of interest that can help them all learn and grow. Really fortunate to have a couple very strong partners here at CSI, namely Microsoft and Rockwell Automation, who have been our two key founding industry partners since the beginning of CSI, roughly 6 to 8 years ago. Microsoft has made a lot of, I'd say, very interesting and strong investments in the state of Wisconsin. Most recently, we've been very fortunate here at CSI to join closely with the Microsoft team. The space immediately to my left, your right, on the opposite side of that wall, is something unique called the Microsoft Artificial Intelligence Co-Innovation Lab. Microsoft has 4 of these labs in the world. This is one of 2 that's in the U.S. The other is out on the West Coast in San Francisco. And this is really first of its kind, with a focus not only on manufacturing, it's also the first of its kind at a university, which gives our students here at UWM tremendous access to a lot of unique growth and development with Microsoft. Also, Microsoft's mission with this lab is to drive more advancement of AI use and development of people using the AI tools in the manufacturing space. And this is really, Jeff, to get back to your question of how did Katie and I connect? By the way, I forget exactly how
It was so much better.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for jogging my memory. So introduced through a Rockwell connection, and we toured the Rely manufacturing facility. We got to figure out that, this planning and scheduling use case we hear a lot about from other manufacturers. Katie and the team at Rely were ready to move. They had internally a really talented resource that wanted to be doing more work with AI in their business. And so we made the connection between Rely, the Microsoft team. We brought the use case to life, and over the span of roughly, I'd say 8 to 10 weeks, Katie and the Rely team brought their problem statement to the Microsoft lab, exited with a prototype that they're now working to really deploy, scale within their company, and help others within the company learn the powers that AI can bring to their business.
Okay, but I want to like flesh that out before we get to our other panelists. So what exactly did that plan help you do that you weren't able to do without the plan? Okay.
Yep. So one of the things I want to highlight, the gentleman who we were able to upskill through this program, he's someone who he didn't go to college. He went to or graduated high school, worked in several manufacturing jobs. And when we tried to bring in people from the outside to help design some of the AI resources, it didn't work as well because they didn't understand what our processes were. And they were kind of trying to shove down what they thought our processes were down our throats. And I think what they are doing is so unique because it allows companies to enable individuals that may not have the educational background that traditionally would be getting these opportunities to get this type of upskilling. And now he is designing his own AI platforms, like we did the scheduling piece, but we're now quoting wire harnessing, taking it from 12 hours to 3 hours with the skill set that he learned here. And that's just not even that value. And so if we go back to the scheduling, so when we're scheduling jobs, we have a unique mix of programs because we have programs that are basically jobs that repeat at least once a month or every single week. We're running them constantly. And then we also have a lot of jobs that will drop in, especially on the third-party sort situation, where it's like we have 75 pallets of product that need to be high pot tested in the next week. You throw that on top of all of the other work that we already have, and it becomes very complicated. And especially when you talk like we sometimes have to start 25 people on a second shift, the supervisor, the material handler, the quality person, all at the same time to be able to fulfill some of these bigger projects. And so doing that in a way that we are still going to be able to actually make money on it is really difficult. And that was what our focus was, is because we track a lot of data. We actually give people $1 extra an hour if they're there a full 40, and then $1 extra an hour if they're hitting their labor efficiencies. And so we have all of that data in place. And so we approached them and we're like, okay, can we take that data and turn it into something where right now our production manager is the only one who can schedule people because all that knowledge is in her head and she can pull out people's efficiency out of thin air. Well, if she's sick or wants to take a vacation, we're screwed. And so at best, we're just going to try our best to schedule people. And what we were able to do is create a program that would allow us to look at, okay, what are people's efficiency rates look like? What job mix do we have in? And then layer on top of that, when are the due dates and what is the most logical way to schedule those folks? And which will allow us to meet those due dates while also being able to make money at the end of the day.
And if I could add something real quick, and Katie did an awesome job explaining the impacts to the Rely business. Again, this problem statement, this use case is common, right? Many manufacturers struggle with this. I think what set Rely apart and what gave them the ability to quickly identify the solution and implement it is they have a lot of data, and their data is organized pretty darn well. Which gave them an advantage, right? And so again, we're sharing this example as something that I think other manufacturers can look at and learn from, because the problem statement's out there with many others.
Okay, so I want to go to the secretary here and the state representative. So I'm first going to go to the Department of Workforce Development Secretary, Amy Pechacek, who led a study group on AI and how it affects the workforce. So my question to you is how should state government be involved, and how is state government involved in this transition?
Fantastic question, Jeff. So in order to answer that, though, I think I need to take this up about 30,000 feet real quick and just set the stage for the context in which this work and these wonderful partnerships that we're hearing about currently exist. And that is the context of the state of the workforce here in the great state of Wisconsin. So I'm going to go back over the last 5 years and just give you a couple quick stats. I don't think this is going to be news to anybody, but it's important, again, to understand where we're going, to understand where we are and where we've been. So Wisconsin has been on a record-breaking economic streak. We have hit, over the last specifically 2 years, record high employment, record high jobs, record high both youth and registered employment with a record number of employer partners and a record number of new career pathways, including AI and information technology systems. We have had record high disability employment for individuals in our state. So over 190,000 individuals now who identify as having a disability have gainful competitive employment in our state. And on top of all of this, we have record low unemployment. Now, the economic sands are shifting a little bit under our feet right now. There is chaos at the federal level, which is causing a lot of economic uncertainty. We are seeing the unemployment rate tick up. I can't give you the exact number because the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor and Statistics is shut down and has been shut down for 42 days. So we are seeing, though, again, stock market impacts. We have had what I would say is uncertainty around tariff policies, immigration policies, and other policies, which, again, now we are seeing a little bit of a reversal. But it's important to understand that with all of those records, we also had demographic trends working against us. Meaning, right, our baby boomers are retiring. Everybody here knows this, right? We've had low birth rates for several generations. And here in the state of Wisconsin, over the past 20 years, we have had net zero to negative immigration, meaning more people have left our state than have come in. That trend did reverse last year. We had a positive net gain of 20,000. Yay, that was great. But what we've seen historically now over the last 5 years is more jobs than physical bodies to fill those jobs. So that is the context of which the governor had the task force on workforce and artificial intelligence, which we founded in 2023. We worked for a year. And throughout that time, we brought together labor leaders because it is important to not only recognize that we are in this fourth industrial revolution, as many of you know, right? This technology is going to change everything about the way we live, work, and play, and already has. But it is projected to literally impact AI virtually every occupation to some extent, with other occupations having a much higher disruption rate than some. So we brought together labor leaders because we want to keep people at the center of all of these conversations. It's important to our governor. It's important to me as the labor secretary that this is a human-centered approach. We brought together private sector, our tech partners, our higher education partners. We had President Rothman from the university systems. We had, again, lots of different folks that came together, the brightest minds, and we said, how are we going to best position Wisconsin to harness this technology and continue our record-breaking economic streak? Among those recommendations really were all about looking at our major industries here in Wisconsin, of course, manufacturing being right at the top, right? Agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, healthcare, education, those are sort of the big ones. And specifically looking at how many people are in each of the occupations in those industries that have the highest disruption rate from this technology, targeting those folks. We actually know how many people are in customer service, in various other financial data analysis, coding, those occupations that have a high disruption rate, and looking at them for a layoff aversion targeted upskilling plan, which is critical, right? I mean, in order to make sure that people can transition with the new way that people are working, right? And again, we do not think, and even with the economy changing, that robots are taking over the world. We think the way we work is going to change, but it is a wonderful opportunity for us to embrace efficiencies that this technology can bring and then continue to move forward, bringing along everybody with us. So to specifically answer the question, Jeff, what are we doing? There were 45 pages of recommendations from this fantastic.
We're not going to go through those.
Nope, we are not.
Okay.
We are going to talk about.
But we can tell people where to find the report.
Yes, it's on our website. Just Google it. It's there.
Okay.
But specifically as it relates to manufacturing, we are worried about our small to mid-sized manufacturers. We know that our large manufacturers, Rockwell was already mentioned here today, have a lot of capital investment power to adopt and adapt to this technology very quickly. I have toured their floors. It is amazing. It is amazing what they are doing. However, we have, I believe the stat is 98% of the businesses here in manufacturing are not the size of Rockwell. They are mid to small businesses, and they employ 57% of our workforce. And so we need those folks to be able to have the ability to also harness this technology, adapt it, and make sure that we can, keep the economic backbone of our main streets and small communities lively and thriving, because it is that important to our economic health. And so there are lots of recommendations. There was funding requests that we made through the biennial budget process. We have been successful in getting additional funding. I can wait to talk about that. We have a sort of a late-breaking award that is specific to AI and manufacturing that we will be rolling out. But it has really been about investing in upskilling, helping small to medium-sized manufacturers either through incentives or grants, targeting those workers who are most susceptible to being disrupted, and really focusing on some of our proven workforce strategies, like working with individuals with disabilities, as well as through the apprenticeship model. I'll stop.
Okay. So for the uninitiated, perhaps, DWD secretary is appointed by the Democratic governor. And so Representative Adam Neylon, he's a Republican from Pewaukee, and he's the vice chair of the Assembly Committee on Jobs and the Economy. There was also the Speaker of the Assembly, Republican Robin Vos, had his own task force on AI. So, but there's been, I think, a lot of bipartisan cooperation on this issue because, well, jobs are important to both parties, obviously. But Representative, I want you to sort of like take a stab at that question. What is the role of state government here in this transition on the AI jobs and manufacturing front?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's definitely something that is on front of mind of a lot of policymakers. As I kind of think of in terms of we're entering a new era right now. I think we've been living in the internet era, and now we're entering into the artificial intelligence era. So I think we have to really weigh carefully what the steps we need to take as policymakers. Thus far. And I did sit on the task force, the Speaker's task force for artificial intelligence. I've also, when we looked at what we should do as a state, I think one of the main things is protecting people, right? Is consumer protections, is looking at how can we make sure people are safe in this new world, and kind of splitting the difference between like, all right, we want to allow for innovation. Right, we want to allow for commerce, but we also have to look at where are the places that we have to make sure people are safe and protected. And one of the places that we started, I did a bipartisan bill, with Democrats to look at election law in the state of Wisconsin, and we were able to pass. And I authored the first ever artificial intelligence law, basically in the state last session, that was signed into law by the governor. That was around disclosures and disclaimers for using artificial intelligence in political campaigning. So now if you're using artificial intelligence through video or audio in Wisconsin, you have to disclose that to the voter and to the viewer. So that was, we were kind of innovative and leading a charge and saying, okay, what can we look at? And I think we have to be really careful as state policymakers, right? Because this is a national, international issue, right? So we don't want to have a patchwork of different rules and regulations that might be applicable in Wisconsin, but then you drive over the border and there's a different set of rules and regulations, right? Because I think we need to provide certainty to businesses. We need to, provide the same type of rules and regulations across borders. So I think it's a lot of this stuff. I really, encourage the federal government to step up and put some of these regulations across the border, right? We looked specifically at elections, and we did that for a reason, because elections are state law, right? We have a lot of ability. The federal government pretty much lets us run our elections. So how we can step in and set up the disclaimers and the rules around it can be applicable in Wisconsin, right? But they won't have to do the same thing in Illinois. It's specific to elections. We've also looked at last session. We also passed legislation that came out of the AI task force around generating images, nude images of minors. I don't want to call it child porn, but it's the generating images of minors. We made that a felony in Wisconsin. So we got to make sure that as policymakers, we're keeping up on the new industries, new ways of exploiting people, and making sure we're looking at ways we can keep people safe. This session, we passed legislation in a similar area around creating images, nude images of people, and we expanded beyond minors. We started at minors, got it signed into law. This session, we looked at expanding that, and that bill is currently going through the legislature. So there are different areas I think we do need to step up as policymakers to make sure we're keeping people safe. There are funding initiatives, right? We just alluded to, like in the budget. I think there are some ways that we can help industries and looking at ways we can work together and be collaborative. But I also think that we need to be careful as state policymakers that we're really specifically targeting things like in the case of election law or in the case of nude images, and that we're looking at making sure we're keeping people safe and our laws are keeping up with the technology. And when it comes to commerce, when it comes to industry, like I think there's a role for government, but some of that role is just providing certainty, providing stability, and making sure that companies have the tools they need to be successful, as opposed to coming up with some sort of state policy that governs AI specific to Wisconsin, because it crosses borders and businesses want certainty.
Okay, so let me just ask this basic question. I think that, if you bring up AI, in casual conversation, I think you brought up the robot, robots are taking over the jobs. Okay, so, but really the fears are out there that AI is going to eliminate jobs. So is that a realistic fear? And what is the real impact of AI if that isn't the truth? Let's just start with you, Katie, because you told me you have strong opinions on this. So go ahead.
I do have strong opinions. Well, I first off, I have a husband who's like terrified of AI. So I will get him there eventually. No, but really, like, there's no way you can say that AI is not going to eliminate some jobs. I think there was any revolution that we've had eliminate jobs in some way. I think that it's going to change how we do things. So like one of the things that we've been talking about is computer design and computer programming majors are one of the people that are having the hardest time finding jobs right now. Well, CNC programmers, process techs, automation techs, those are all skill sets that are readily transferable that we should be paying attention to and trying to pivot people with those skill sets onto things. I think the roles that people are not adding a lot of value to the actual activities that they're doing, those are going to be the hardest hit. But I think as we're getting into, and we're probably one of the leaders in embracing AI, because as a small business, we were really excited because we were like, okay, great. This is the first thing that we can actually invest in. That's not a huge investment that we need a lot of capital, that type of thing, that will let us compete with the people that we have never been able to compete, the Generacs of the world, those folks. And so being able to actually identify and upskill our team without thinking that they are just going to, now I get to hit play and I don't need to look at anything that it does. I don't need to proofread anything. That's what we need to be focusing on, is teaching people how to work with AI and understand that, yes, you are going to be able to feed it in data. You're going to be able to have it create things for you, but you still need to be that quality control. You can't just turn off your brain. You still need to add value to those things.
Okay. So Secretary Pechacek, should people fear for their jobs because of AI?
No. Absolutely not. So here is, I agree with exactly what Katie said, and I'm going to spin it in a little bit of a different way, which is that humans have been flexible, have evolved with every industrial revolution. Jobs have gotten better, more human-centric. And so instead of crunching numbers, now we have Excel. And instead of, doing taxing computer coding, now we have AI that will do that. But there are still humans in the loop that are, whose jobs now pay better, are more meaningful, quite frankly, probably more interesting, and have been created due to the economy. I'm going to give you one quick example, which I think illustrates this very well, which is the onset of ATMs, automated teller machines. I think some people have probably heard this story, but right, those were invented in the late 1960s. They came in the 70s. By the time the 1980s and 1990s rolled around, ATMs were everywhere. And bank tellers were terrified because their job was collecting money, counting money, and distributing money. And so there was the sense that bank tellers were now replaced by these automatic teller machines, these ATMs. But what ended up happening, if there's a longitudinal study that has followed the bank tellers' jobs, and actually the advent of the ATM created a demand for more bank tellers, because what happened was it became a very efficient way for people to deposit money and withdraw money. And that meant banks could actually expand, because it was cheaper to open a new bank now to put an ATM, expand into small cities and markets all over the country. And then what you had was a small bank, but you needed a bank manager or a bank teller at that point who didn't count money and distribute cash. They actually helped with loans and financial service products and more interesting and advanced and higher paying jobs. Now we're going to be going to a completely cashless society. And so ATMs will be gone, but we'll continue to evolve, right? And what happened with ATMs? New jobs. We also then had to have people who staffed the ATMs, who helped fix them when they broke down. We had to have security come and drive the cash to and from. Those jobs evolved. That is exactly what's going to continue to happen. Humans are flexible, they're nimble, our economy will evolve, our jobs and lives shall get better, and those routine, mundane tasks like counting data will.
But there's going to be some losers.
Jeff, if we are able to follow the playbook and upskill and bring everybody along with us, instead of creating another digital divide like the last sort of internet boom has created the haves and have-nots, there is a playbook for how to bring everybody along. There's a seat at the table of prosperity for everybody if we can uplift and create economic opportunity, train people for this new reality, and bring folks along.
Okay.
And that is what our 45-page report talks about, is bringing people along.
Okay, so Representative Neylon, what's the Assembly Republicans' view on that? Are you as optimistic?
Oh, I can tell you my view.
Okay, well, tell me your view.
All right. So I am a little less optimistic, I would say, but I think there's an economic principle known as creative destruction. And I think we're going to go through that, where certain industries, certain jobs will be destroyed. They will. People will lose their jobs. People are going to lose their jobs. Some people will. But we're going to go through an evolution of creative destruction where old industries die and new industries replace it. And eventually we will get to a place. But I think that there is going to be a difficult transition period, and there's going to be people losing their jobs, and there's going to be industries disappearing that maybe people aren't anticipating, right? I think that a lot of times people think of blue collar work as being the most vulnerable. I think there's a lot of white collar jobs that are really vulnerable to AI, and a lot of even industries that are still thriving that we might look back and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that was going to be replaced in this way. But I do think, we will rebound. And I think ultimately AI is going to be a tool to help people be more efficient in their job. And I do think that it will lead to gains. But in the short term, there's going to be layoffs. There's going to be a difficult transition period of creative destruction. And I think that that's somewhat inevitable. Whether we agree with that principle or not, it's here. And I think that if the government tries to protect and hang on to industries that are forced to adapt and change and grow, we will be left behind. We will be passed up by other countries, other states, other people that are more adaptive, that aren't trying to cling to the ways of the past, and are leaning into this creative destruction to try to find the right spot for education and training. One of the things I'm most proud of that I've done over the last few years is I created the first ever robotics grant program to create all sorts of opportunities for high school kids to participate in competitive robotics. Because I think one of the best things we can do is train kids in the skills that they will need. Not to say, hey, this is the job you're going to need in the future, but to learn the systems, to learn how to do applied AI, to learn about the actual hardware, to learn about the sensors. And I think there will be a shift and there will be a change in how we work, but it will be a difficult process getting there.
You want to add something?
Yeah, just really quick. I agree with everything the representative said, although the one thing I will point out is that the role of government has the ability to assist with that transition. I'm not saying protect outdated, antiquated jobs. I'm saying protect the people in those jobs by targeting them, upskilling them, and helping them transition. I don't think as a government, we need to just watch people suffer and let them languish as prior industrial revolutions have allowed. And that's why it's important to be proactive and invest in workforce now so that we can bring people.
So you're talking
along.
about retraining people.
I'm talking about retraining. I'm talking about helping small businesses adapt to this technology. I'm talking about educational certifications. I'm talking about apprenticeships and all of those things.
Go ahead. You want to?
Thank you. So I think one of the things that I think married both of what you were saying together and what I find beautiful about AI is the fact that it's never been easier to retrain and upskill yourself before. And so that there's not just going to be people who are, if you can't go to a college, if you can't go to a tech school, well, sorry, you're left on the sideline. It's never been easier to code things. It's never been easier to create apps. And I think just getting people more comfortable with this is like having a university in your back pocket. So even if you do lose your job, there's a safety net there if you really want to take the initiative and learn something that you can really fall back on.
Yeah, I just hope robots never take over moderating. All right. Anyway, so you've heard this discussion, and I mean, I think that you're maybe able to take a little like a 30,000-foot view on, what's happening and maybe who the winners and losers might be.
I mean, I agree with a lot of the sentiments that everybody shared, and I might steal a line actually that we've heard a couple times from a local leader of a small manufacturing company out in Waukesha, and this leader has the position that this leader has taken is we're going to invest in technology and we're going to invest in artificial intelligence in my company. By doing so, we're not going to replace jobs, right? We're going to liberate people to do more with their 8 hours or the time that they spend doing work for my company. That's the message, right? Is that we're freeing up space for people to be more impactful. And when those people have a growth mindset to do more, that creates a lot more opportunities for businesses into the future state. And as I look at our team at CSI, I'm looking in the classroom here. We've got Calvin, Peyton, and Faria, a few of our students. That's our future, right? And this is the skill set that they are learning every day, is how to harness these tools to do more so they can be competitive and stay at pace, if not exceed pace when they graduate.
Pace.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's, I know we're just skimming the surface here, right? We could talk all day here, but we try to keep these conversations compact, and then, you get some takeaways and then explore more. Okay. So let's go to the audience for questions. I'm going to have the mic and so that we can record your question properly, but don't try to grab the mic. I never give it up. Buckley, you know that. I'm not going to give up the mic. Go ahead.
Ever. This is a question for Katie and the secretary. Katie, what we're seeing with a lot of small and medium manufacturers, that they're having trouble taking that first step and using the technology and then getting an ROI from it. The question to you is, how would you counsel your fellow manufacturers on how to take that first step? And for the secretary, how's the state catalyzing that adoption of technology?
Yep. So it's been funny because I get asked this question a lot because obviously, as you guys can see, I've embraced AI a lot faster than a lot of the other manufacturers. And I have a nickname as the grumpy old man whisperer. In terms of, I can basically go to any manufacturer and you tell someone that does not want to change, and I will get them to be comfortable with change. But how you do that is listening to people and actually understanding what their issues are with it. And the way that I strongly suggest is by starting to transcribe your internal meetings and seeing the value of the fact that you don't need to be taking so many notes. You can actually be paying attention to the content, and the amount of innovation and ideas come out of that when you don't have to waste so much time doing that, doing the follow-ups, being able to communicate to your clients effectively when you have a summary of the notes. Like, it didn't have to take 2 hours. We always try to look at, okay, what jobs do you absolutely hate? I was at Waukesha County Business Alliance this morning, and it was really funny. And everyone's like, okay, so if you can find anyone that can do order intake constantly, like an AI thing, like that would be the dream. There's things that everyone hates in every single one of their jobs. There could be a reality where we could actually enjoy everything that we do with our job. That's exciting to me.
I don't know, an all-night session in the assembly is probably not going to.
I don't know if they'll fundraise for me.
Okay. I mean, go ahead. Wait, everybody discuss this. This is an important thing. Go ahead, Amy.
Yes. So what the state is doing to help small and mid-sized businesses and their employees is critical. We've got a couple different funding mechanisms, because we know often in order to adapt to technology and adapt to new skills, it takes money, and not every large or not every small and mid-sized business has the capital investments to do this at the level that the large businesses have. And we know that even our small and mid-sized businesses are competing on a global economy. So one of the very specific things I'll talk about is Wisconsin Fast Forward. It's a $5 million annual training grant that the Department of Workforce Development gives out to employers to upskill either incumbents, so current workers, in new skills, or brand new workers that they're bringing in. The governor has also done the Workforce Solutions Initiative, which is a $158 million investment in uplifting all of the workforce here in the state of Wisconsin by helping individuals overcome barriers, and also partnering with small and medium businesses to onboard those folks and really help individuals overcome any type of training needs, digital literacy, and other things. And then sort of late breaking, a really, really cool announcement that we had the day before the federal government shut down was that the Department of Workforce Development was lucky enough to compete and be awarded a U.S. Department of Labor grant specific to AI and manufacturing and upskilling, called the WisTrain grant, that we were able to obtain. And then, of course, the government shut down. So I don't have further details on when we will actually be able to implement this, but it is $7.3 million. It does not have a match. It's going to be competitively distributed to manufacturers and some other industries throughout the state. And it is specific to upskilling current employees and helping manufacturers adopt and bring on this AI so that they can remain efficient, competitive in a global marketplace. And we love that grant because, unlike the Wisconsin Fast Forward grant, there is not a cash sort of match requirement, which can be a barrier to some small businesses. So we are doing those things. The other things that we're doing, one last thing I'll mention, because this is really, really important, is apprenticeships. And this is big for any type size business, large business, small business, medium business. Apprenticeship in Wisconsin is an earn while you learn model. It is a way for businesses to grow their workforce and people to grow into a career, a family sustaining job without having to take on college debt. You earn while you learn, and we have rolled out that model. So you're getting paid not only for your hands-on work experience, but also for your associated time sitting in the classroom. So you're getting paid to learn, and an employer is getting a ready-made employee in their businesses and their policies, and it's a wonderful program. We lead the nation. We were the first state in the nation to have this program back in 1911, and we have rolled it out into IT, cybersecurity, finance, healthcare. It's not just the trades anymore, even though the trades are wonderful and some of the highest paying apprenticeships that we have. It is now a universal way. We have a 4-year registered nursing apprenticeship. You can get paid to get a 4-year registered nursing degree and make 6 figures when you're done with no college debt, earning money the whole time. So, but the same thing goes for the IT, for the AI, that component. And that is one way that we're keeping our future workforce here in the state, by rolling out those options. And it's a way that we're supporting business and the workforce here in these emerging technologies.
All right, let's get as many questions in as we can. And I don't want to call on you students, but I'd love to have a student question. All right, go ahead.
So Wisconsin has a history of being a manufacturing state. And when you look at, there's been a lot of talk of reshoring manufacturing, advanced manufacturing driven by AI, which requires processing of data at data centers. I guess I see a link there in, say, state policy. And I'm wondering if you see that and if you see a coordination in developing kind of an environment that will allow for that to be successful.
Okay, why don't we go to Representative Neylon? What about the whole reshoring thing? That's a goal of the national administration. How can state government help that along and propelled by AI?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think some of the answers, in terms of reskilling our workforce, in terms of Wisconsin Fast Forward apprenticeships, I think those play a big role. I think when it comes to like onshoring, I think, we in Wisconsin have so much to offer, right? We just have so much to offer in terms of the manufacturing and agricultural tax credit. That's an incentive for people to locate here, a skilled workforce that we continue to invest in. We're continuing to put money into skilled workforce at the younger ages and building up, but also just like our natural resources. So I feel like, we have a good incentive package that we can offer. Like when you look at, all right, if you want to come back into the United States, and then there's all sorts of reasons to do that, from supply chain, from educated workforce. There's all sorts of reasons outside of traditional government incentives that people are looking at potentially coming back into the United States, potentially, setting up manufacturing and advanced manufacturing here. And I would just say, look at our climate, right? Look at how many, I bet you more people work in my district than live there, right? We have so many jobs. We have so many opportunities, especially in manufacturing. But I would point to the manufacturing and agricultural tax credit. I would point to a lot of the work that WEDC is doing. I would point to some of the certainty around our regulatory climate. And I also point to the people we have that really make Wisconsin what it is. And I think that we're continuing to invest in institutions that are training people for the jobs of tomorrow, even though we might not know what they exactly look like. So I think currently we do have a lot of incentives that we can offer to companies.
Okay, state your name and what year you're in school and your question.
Yeah, I'm Peyton Anderson, a sophomore studying mechanical engineering, and I'm representing the AI Club as president. And so my question with workforce is tied to how you guys mentioned, robotics programs. You guys mentioned doing programs with like having people get into industry early on and having, students set pace. But for question and representing the students, like how do you get to that level? And so being here at CSI, I'm like lucky enough to have some experience under my belt. But a lot of students aren't that lucky to be able to, get into those positions where they can have some experience, because the experience bar just got raised up by 1 year. And so what do you say, to students who are trying to get in the workforce? Because AI, as we know, is tackling a lot of jobs. And one of those jobs are like those entry-level positions. So the bar is getting higher with like, first you need to know how to code. Okay, well, we have a lot of people who know how to code. Okay, now you need to be an AI engineer and a data scientist. Okay, what's after that? Like, how do you get students more involved and actually like into the workforce?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the entry level jobs are some of the first that may be eliminated, right, by AI. Okay, Joe, why don't you try to tackle that from an education point of view? What do you tell the students?
I mean, Peyton, it's a great question, and a big part of our goal here at the CSI is to connect UWM students to meaningful experiences with industry. It's those meaningful experiences, and I look to my left here with Katie as a well-informed voice of industry, right? Those experiences help our students immediately upskill and ready themselves for those jobs in the workforce, right? Got a great example of a former student of ours here at CSI, Daniela Gutierrez, who, again, to my left, Katie had an opportunity to meet during a tour of CSI about a year ago. Daniela, right spot, right time, was working on an industry-informed robotic automation project here at CSI. And at the time, Katie and the Rely team happened to have an opportunity for a new manufacturing engineer. So long story short, now Danielle is part of the team at Rely. And I think those are the sorts of connections that we're trying to make more of. Again, intentional experiences informed by industry that can give our students the upskilling that's complementary to what they learn in the classroom and gets them ready for what's next.
I feel very strongly that we need to be doing more internships, more hybrid workforce where you guys are learning in school, you're also learning on the job. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of times, because I think some of the frustration that employers have is it's like, well, what did they train them in school on? Like, why do they not have these skills? Well, why are we not surprised that they don't have the skills if we don't give them the opportunities to actually do that? And so going back to the question from before, pairing the folks that are going out of school that have all of those tech skills and pairing them with the tribal knowledge that is in the boomers, in Gen Z, like that type of stuff, or not Gen Z, but the one between millennials and Gen X.
Those people.
Yeah, those people. Yeah. No, but pairing them, because I mean, manufacturers are in a panic right now about the fact that so much knowledge is walking out the door and it's retiring. And so pairing the generation that has all of those skill set, who's grown up around the technology, that's comfortable with it, and pairing them with experts to really create really cool tools that are going to propel the businesses and allow them to offer so many more opportunities for people. That's what we need to be doing.
Anybody else want to weigh in on it? You know, this whole, I don't know what the stats are, Secretary, but, you know, small business, right, accounts for a lot of the jobs. We always think of when big companies have layoffs, they get the headlines, or if they hire a bunch of people, you know, that gets the headlines, but not so much for all these little operations that are growing jobs constantly. And I kind of feel like, Joe, that's part of the sweet spot for you guys too, right? Here, is that right? I mean, you're helping companies with the employer numbers of Katie's company for the most part, right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if the question is, all right, hey, what's
your sweet spot for the lab and for growing these jobs?
Sure. So it's, I mean, part of the sweet spot is what we just talked to, the students, right? Making sure that they are ready with experiences. The other part of the sweet spot is the example that we talked about with Rely Manufacturing, where they have an internal team. In this case, it was an individual who wanted to stretch, who wanted to gain new skills with AI to make more impact in the company. And those are a lot of the efforts that we try to bring to life, both here at CSI, with partnership with Microsoft and the Co-Innovation Lab, create these truly reskilling opportunities for the incumbent workforce so they're ready to do more.
And I just want to add one point, if I may, just like when we're talking about small businesses and large businesses and AI, I think AI is giving a tremendous tool to small businesses to compete in a way they couldn't previously, right? So you can compete with the bigger guys in a way that you couldn't because of the tools at your disposal now. Like, I'm able to whip out like legal paperwork that, you know, sign contracts now easy that I don't have to pay an attorney to do, right? So my small business, I'm able to operate a lot more efficiently and better and compete with some of the bigger guys. It's putting small business actually at a better advantage to take advantage of some of these tools.
The only other thing I was going to say on that is a lot of the bigger companies are struggling tremendously on how do we get the AI through the bureaucracy that we've built. And so this is the time for smaller and medium-sized companies to embrace it, because it's going to be a little bit until they figure it out and figure out how they're going to do it. And a lot of the companies are going after such high aspirations. Like, we should be going after the low-hanging fruit. Like, that's why we focus so much on the quoting aspect of it, is if we can quote faster than our competitors because we don't have as many levels in our organization that quotes have to go through, we're inevitably going to win more bids, which is also going to allow us to employ more people and grow from that perspective.
And I was just going to add a little bit of context in terms of the statistics and quote Buckley's report from the Wisconsin Manufacturer and Productivity Center So mid and small size manufacturers in Wisconsin in 2023, about 10% had adopted some form of AI into their operations. In 2024, that was 18%. And this year, it's up to 33%. So they're moving right along, but we want to see that number obviously continue to grow with these strategic investments and opportunities and providing grants and other incentives and training so that these small and mid-sized businesses, especially our manufacturers, can remain globally competitive.
Okay, any other? Yeah, Joe, hold on now, Joe. I know you have a strong voice, but you're going to use this.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. So question I have for you, and it ties onto something that Katie said about knowledge walking out the door. And what I'm hearing is that we've got young people who are learning and learning fast and adapting. And we have people in the younger generations who aren't afraid. And we have people in the forgotten generation that I'm part of, Generation X, just want to point that out.
The forgot.
Always forgotten. Who maybe are stressed about the fact that they don't provide value, even though I think, Katie, what you identified was there's the cultural piece. So how do we put these two together? So is it that in the area of AI, which is technology, the other opportunity is to redefine the way older folks who have the knowledge, the experience, the relationship, understand the edge cases because they were there when they happened, to then redefine and act as mentor, partner, coaches rather than silo owners, because effectively you guys are all breaking down silos.
Yeah, what's the culture piece here?
You know,
It's a people piece.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the culture piece, and it's a two-sided coin, I think, in my personal opinion, is I think we need to be doing a better job in schools teaching students that going in and so like, I think with our competitive environment and social media and all of that, we have trained people to think that they need to go in and prove how much they know and how smart they are and how intelligent they are. That is the worst thing to do with a grumpy old man who knows everything about manufacturing, because they're gonna be like, who is this little shit that just thinks he knows everything about this? I'm not gonna spend any time with him. Now, if you go in and are like, I have all these skills, how can I make your job easier? I just wanna learn from you. That's gonna change things fundamentally. I also think we need to, on the flip side, with the older generation, we need to focus on what things can we just need to prove it with one simple win. What is the thing that they hate the most about their job? Go show them that AI can actually fix that and eliminate that part of their job that they hate. And they will suddenly start embracing it. And they will suddenly be like, okay, well, maybe I do want Scott to come over here and help me again. And it's amazing how quickly it happens when people can actually see a win-win situation.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Because it does seem to be, I mean, in previous industrial revolutions, the retraining thing didn't always work, right? A lot of money was thrown at it by companies and government, and a lot of it didn't work. It didn't take because I think there was just resistance from that generation of employees. It seems like it's a major obstacle.
Well, and I think it's also just reinforcing that we are trying to document the legacy and the imprint that you are going to have on this company. We want to make sure that your impact is here long after you are gone. And this is the way that we can do this. And we have folks that are really excited who think about yourselves 35 years ago. We always have the issue where it's like, well, my life sucked when I first started here. And so I'm going to make your life suck too, because that's who made me who I am. And it's like,
you might have worked in the newspaper industry.
and it's like, okay, but is that, if we could go back in time and we could change it, would you really want to have been fundamentally changed by all of the adversity that you had to go through? And they're like, okay, well, maybe not. Okay, well, let's try to make it nicer for this and nicer for your kids down the road if we can really truly collaborate.
Okay, so I want to try to bring it to a close. Great questions, and your questions are always better than mine. But I'm going to try to close it out here with a try to crystal ball it a little bit here. So, what is the biggest challenge that you see now that years from now we're going to say, oh well, that wasn't much of a challenge, or what are the obstacles standing in the way of a true AI revolution that treats the workers of today great, treats the students of tomorrow, students of today, the workers of tomorrow great? I mean, what are the what are the things that are standing in the way of that? Who wants to? I know that wasn't part of the program that I told you about, right? But anyway, put your thinking caps on.
You know, maybe I'll take an initial swing and give everybody a minute to think. I think, and I'm looking at Buckley because Buckley's reminded me of this a few times, that we've got quite a bit of talent across the state. And Phyllis was just here from WCTC. You know, certainly we're playing our part here at UWM. I think the more that we can collaborate on this big topic, we've got a lot of thought leadership around AI, certainly a lot of thought leadership on manufacturing across this state. That's going to give us a pretty powerful platform to identify what are the true roadblocks and how can we bring this right group of thought leaders together to break them down. So that's my initial.
All right, collaboration.
Well, and I was going to say, I completely agree with you because I think from a state perspective, how can you incentivize companies that develop something that's really working for them to share what they've developed with others without feeling like that's giving up their competitive advantage or they're going to be losing out on business or they're going to get taken advantage of. That's what I really think we need to get over. And it's interesting because I'm not from Wisconsin originally. I'm from Michigan. And it is what the number one thing I had to learn moving here is you are a cliquey bunch, just for what it's worth. It's one where if you are not from here, it takes a while to get used to it. But what I love about Wisconsin is once you break into that group, you guys collaborate better than probably any other region on the face of the planet because you guys put such a barrier up to, you're like, well, I better trust you if I'm actually going to talk to you. And that's what we need to lean into. We need to lean into those collaborations and the fact that we have such a knowledge base here. We have so many different industries here. And we also can't be afraid to, if there's a solution in one industry, just siloing it and keeping it in that specific industry. We need to pick our heads up and go, okay, if this worked over here, what little takeaways or what tweaks can we do with this to have it work in healthcare, to have it work in retail, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where government can come in. You can share the best practices often right through the task forces and the study groups too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are recommendations in our 45-page report that talk just about that and how to keep that information exchange about best practices moving forward. And then the last thing that I would add and agree completely with what has been said, that it is about collaboration, but it's also about investment. I think this is the time to be strategic with our workforce development investment in supporting our businesses through this transition so that we can remain competitive and healthy.
All right, last word.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that when I think about AI, I do, like, as a lawmaker and a policymaker, I think a lot about potential pitfalls or potential problems or things we need to address. And I think that overall, when we look back on this era, I think we'll look at it and we'll be like, oh, ChatGPT, that wasn't really like the revolution. Right?
Tebow.
Right. It's like we want the generative AI, like the things that are making it easier, like that's like a small part, right? It's just a small part. And I think that's what people focus on a lot of times right now in terms of like the generative AI. What does this mean for school? What does this mean for learning? What does this mean for, and in reality, I think like you look to around like the applied AI, like how it impacts manufacturing, how it impacts like the economy. I think that we're only scratching the surface right now on the possibilities and what the future is going to look like. And we'll look back on this and be like, oh, it wasn't ChatGPT. AI wasn't ChatGPT. It was far bigger.
I just have, that is such a great point. Thank you, Representative, because ChatGPT, right, it caused all of the fanfare and sort of chaos and fear a few years ago. But I just got back from San Francisco 2 days ago, where I spent my days being driven around by a Waymo, an autonomous self-driving car that is integrating new information of a biker that's coming into the lane and switching and doing rerouting directions. And that agentic AI is so far above and beyond, where it's making its own real-time decisions with no human input, the ChatGPT. So I think it is really fully embracing what this means and how much it is going to impact our lives.
Yeah, I'm going to get enthused when that can drive in 6 inches of snow. So we'll see about that. All right, we want to thank UWM, Connected Systems Institute, Microsoft, and well, you can thank WisPolitics and State Affairs too, and this panel, this great panel. Let's hear it for them.